there's a topic that is becoming very big in the business English teachers industry, but that the public doesn't really know about yet. And I think we're on a mission to popularize it. That's English as a lingua franca.
Yeah.
And you and I both have experience with that. So what does it mean for you, and how do you incorporate that into your courses?
It's using English to communicate with the world in English. So if we think about it, most people are actually communicating in English with other non-native English speakers. So you'll have a meeting where you have a French person, somebody Chinese, somebody from Italy, somebody from Holland, and they're communicating in English. So they're not using English in the same way that native speakers use it. So we could say it's slightly simpler. It's made to communicate. So you need to speak clearly. You need to have confidence that you can be understood. But you don't need so much focus on correct grammar or learning phrasal verbs, for example. And actually, I think a lot of people don't really know that this is a real thing. They know that it exists. So people will say to me, oh, when I'm in a meeting with Germans, it's much easier to understand than when I'm with someone British.
Right.
Yes. Because of English as a lingua franca. And I think the biggest problem is that the native speakers don't know it exists. And they have no concept that more people speak English as a second language than as a first language. And so we have got this whole other English, which is totally different from native speaker English.
Yeah. Yes, I also love the concept and the practice of English as a lingua franca, or this sort of international English that we're talking about, exactly because there are more non-native speakers of English in the world today than native speakers.
Yeah.
So I think to teach oriented towards this standard of perfect British English or perfect American English is a waste of time, because it also stresses people out. And I think we were talking earlier about stress, that is an inhibitor to language learning. And when you're learning English as a lingua franca, you're focusing on different skills and you're incorporating other skills.
Yeah.
So I know that there are some more old-fashioned business English teachers who sort of poo-poo business English as a lingua franca. They don't think it's really a thing. And I think we need to debunk the idea that when we teach English as a lingua franca, we're not teaching the language. That's not true. We are still transmitting information on how to speak English, but we're adding other skills and techniques for learning and for communicating internationally.
Yeah, and it's having a different aim. The aim is to communicate, and your aim can be to communicate at a very high level, but it's not communicating like a native speaker.
That's right. That's right. And I really agree. And this is something that we are also a little bit the champions of, is to get native speakers to speak international English when they're in an international situation.
My dream would be for all native English speakers to learn about English as a lingua franca and to learn how to speak it.
Yes.
Because they don't realize that they can be on a conference call with their colleagues in other parts of the world and they can't understand them. Their colleagues can't understand them. And
the colleagues, exactly, their international colleagues cannot understand the British people. Yes. I know, yes.
The British people have no idea.
Yeah.
And even when people say things like, can you slow down, please? I don't speak English that well. They'll say, oh yeah, but your English is much better than my French. And then carry on. So it's total lack of awareness as a whole.
That's right. That's right. And what ties into that is, and it's something that comes up in my coaching workshops, is the way power comes into communication. We speak of it far too little, I think. It's all this stuff that's also underneath the rug of intercultural communication, English as a lingua franca, and it's stuff I think that we need to uncover and really start looking at that if we want truly a global and an international society and a world that is truly democratic.
Yeah. And I think we have to remember that English is a lingua franca. It's not English that belongs to Britain, to America, to Australia. It's a new English. It's a tool, it's a new language, and it's the language of global conversation.
I couldn't agree more. And I think exactly on that note, what's important also for native speakers who get a little bit huffy about protecting their language, and also internationals. I know I have one client who said, I don't want to speak Globish, I want to speak really refined English. And I think they are two separate languages.
Yeah.
So you can be precious about your, and I'm very precious about my native language of English when I'm in the appropriate context. But when I'm in an international context, it has to be international English or English as a lingua franca.
We call it Linglish.
Yeah. At the next conference, we'll make that a proposal.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.